Spring 1944. Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The slice of white bread seemed impossibly large to Hanna Müller, a captured German auxiliary nurse from the Wehrmacht Helferinnen Corps. After 2 years of carefully measured rations in field hospitals across France, this single piece of American bread represented a week's allowance in Berlin. Yet it sat casually on her metal tray alongside a bowl of vegetable soup, a serving of beef with gravy, mashed potatoes, green beans, fruit cocktail, and a glass of real milk. "They called this lunch," she later wrote in a censored letter home. "What Americans eat in a single midday meal exceeds our weekly provisions, and they apologized that wartime restrictions limited their offerings." Across American detention facilities that spring, 3,562 German women in military service confronted a reality that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American scarcity and inefficiency. They discovered a nation where 3 distinct meals appeared daily with mechanical precision, where portions seemed grotesquely excessive by German standards, where kitchen staff discarded leftovers that could feed an entire German family. The mathematics of abundance were being written in protein and carbohydrates, in milk and fruit, revealing an American industrial capacity that rendered German efficiency not as triumph but as systemic failure. What began as disbelief at American food portions would evolve into complete psychological reorientation. The women's enclosure at Fort Oglethorpe housed female prisoners primarily from the Wehrmacht Helferinnen Corps, the women's auxiliary service that had provided communications specialists, nurses, and administrative support to German military operations. Most had been captured during the Allied advances in North Africa and Italy, where German forces increasingly relied on female personnel for non-combat roles. These women had expected harsh privation as prisoners. Nazi briefings had prepared them for American vindictiveness and disorganization. Instead, within hours of processing, they encountered standardized meal services providing between 3,200 and 3,500 calories daily, approximately triple what female civilians in Germany received when rations were fully available. According to War Department records, standard meals at women's POW facilities followed nutritional guidelines that exceeded pre-war German civilian standards. The Fort Oglethorpe mess hall served breakfast at 0700 hours daily. Hot cereal with milk and sugar, eggs, bread with butter and jam, and coffee with real sugar and condensed milk. Lunch at 1200 hours included soup, a meat dish, vegetables, bread, dessert, and milk. Dinner at 1800 hours featured another protein, vegetables, potatoes or substitute, bread, dessert, and coffee or tea. The systematic feeding of enemy personnel with superior food began immediately, though its psychological impact would only be fully documented later. A German signals specialist later testified to Red Cross inspectors, "We expected to be hungry as prisoners. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own leadership fed the civilians we had left behind." This abundance while fighting a global war began our re-education about American capabilities. Medical examinations conducted during initial processing revealed the nutritional deficiencies common among German female personnel. Mild anemia affected 42% of incoming prisoners. Vitamin deficiencies appeared in 37%, and dental problems plagued 63%. Within 3 months, follow-up examinations documented remarkable improvements across all categories, with average weight gains between 7 and 12 pounds per woman. The contrast between conditions in American custody versus German military service created cognitive dissonance that no propaganda could resolve. War Department statistics from 1944 revealed the stark disparity. German female military auxiliaries received rations providing 800, 1,100 calories daily during combat operations, while American POW rations provided 3,000 plus calories daily with greater nutritional diversity and completeness. This disparity between German deprivation and American abundance delivered a more profound ideological challenge than any formal re-education program. It wasn't just the quantity that stunned the German women, but the casualness with which it was provided, not as special treatment, but as standard American institutional feeding during wartime restrictions. The revelation that America's limited wartime food exceeded Germany's highest aspirations would systematically demolish years of carefully constructed propaganda about American weakness. Summer 1944. Camp Kennedy, Texas. The kitchen staff's synchronized movements mesmerized Ingrid Weber, a captured Nachrichtenhelferin, female communications specialist who had served with the Luftwaffe in Sicily. As she observed through the mess hall service window, the American personnel prepared 3 entirely different meals for the same day, a concept so foreign it seemed almost decadent. In the Germany she had left behind, the Eintopf, one-pot meal, had become a patriotic symbol, its monotony celebrated as necessary sacrifice. Yet here, in captivity, she watched Americans prepare distinct breakfast, lunch, and dinner offerings with casual efficiency. The Americans treated food variety as a matter of routine, not luxury, she later recalled in a post-war interview. They rotated menus on a 2-week cycle, with no meal repeated in that time. We had lived on virtually the same meal for years. The Army Quartermaster Corps maintained meticulous records documenting the feeding standards at women's POW facilities. Daily caloric provisions averaged 3,520 per prisoner during summer 1944, delivered through a rigid 3-meal system that demonstrated American institutional precision. Breakfast typically included fruit or juice, 4 ounces, cereal, 1 cup, with milk, 8 ounces, eggs, 2, or meat, 4 ounces, bread, 2 slices, with butter, 0.5 ounces, and preserves, 1 ounce, and coffee with sugar, 2 teaspoons. Lunch featured soup, 8 ounces, a protein entree, 6 ounces, 2 vegetables, 4 ounces each, bread, 2 slices, dessert, and milk, 8 ounces. Dinner followed a similar pattern with variations in protein and side dishes. This standardized approach to institutional feeding contrasted sharply with the deteriorating German rationing system, where by mid-1944, civilian women received approximately 1,100 calories daily through increasingly irregular distributions. The weekly ration card for a German adult woman allocated 1,750 grams of bread, 250 grams of meat, 28 grams of fat, 110 grams of sugar, and 100 grams of ersatz coffee, provisions expected to last 7 days that American camps served in a single day. War Department Directive 383.6 established clear nutritional standards for POW facilities, stipulating that prisoners would receive the same base rations as American service personnel, adjusted only for work requirements and cultural preferences. This policy was applied with particular attentiveness at women's facilities, where Camp Kennedy's records show scrupulous compliance with Army Medical Corps nutritional guidelines. The psychological impact of meal predictability proved particularly significant. Female German military personnel had grown accustomed to operational uncertainty, with field rations appearing at irregular intervals during combat operations. American camps introduced rigid meal schedules, breakfast at 0700, lunch at 1200, dinner at 1800, maintained with industrial precision. This consistency itself became a form of psychological reorientation, suggesting an American system of abundance so secure it could operate with clockwork reliability even for enemy personnel. International Red Cross inspections from July 1944 documented the meal conditions at women's POW facilities. A Swiss delegation visiting Camp Kennedy reported, "Female German prisoners receive varied and nutritious meals exceeding Geneva Convention requirements. Kitchen facilities are clean, modern, and efficiently operated." The prisoners expressed surprise at both the quantity and variety of food, which many stated exceeded their pre-war civilian experience in Germany. Medical records maintained by camp physicians tracked the physical impact of American feeding standards. By autumn 1944, female German prisoners had experienced significant health improvements. Anemia rates dropped from 42% at intake to 7% after 6 months. Dental health stabilized. Average weight gain reached 11.2 pounds per prisoner, and documented vitamin deficiency disorders decreased by 87%. The contrast with deteriorating conditions in Germany created profound cognitive dissonance. As female prisoners received 3 varied meals daily in American camps, German civilian women subsisted increasingly on rutabagas, diluted soups, and bread extended with sawdust. Letters from home, heavily censored but revealing between the lines, described worsening food situations that made the prisoners' captivity seem paradoxically privileged. The American meal system's industrial scale revealed production capabilities that contradicted everything these women had been taught. The automated dishwashers, refrigeration systems, and food storage facilities demonstrated technological applications that German propaganda had dismissed as American fantasy. These daily meals became undeniable evidence of a system that could produce abundance on a scale that Germany's vaunted efficiency could not match, even in peacetime. Fall 1944, Camp Blanding, Florida. The neatly arranged display case in the women's canteen held Elfriede Schultz transfixed. After 3 years as a radio operator for the Luftwaffe monitoring Allied transmissions, she now stared at rows of items she hadn't seen since before the war. Chocolate bars in 5 varieties, cigarettes in colourful packages, writing paper, soap that smelled of actual perfume rather than industrial lye, and even cosmetics. Most shocking was the camp scrip in her hand, 85 cents earned from voluntary work in the camp laundry. Enough to purchase not just necessities, but actual luxuries. The ability to choose what to buy was more shocking than captivity itself, she later wrote. In Germany, we had money but empty shelves. Here, as prisoners, we had both money and goods. The canteen system at women's POW facilities represented a form of cultural shock therapy more potent than any propaganda film. Army records show that Camp Blanding's women's compound operated a canteen stocked with 137 distinct items in fall 1944, ranging from basic toiletries to confections. Female prisoners could purchase Hershey's chocolate, 5 cents, Camel cigarettes, 15 cents per pack, Colgate toothpaste, 10 cents, Ivory soap, 5 cents, writing paper, 10 cents per pad, Tangy lipstick, 25 cents, and even nylon stockings, 85 cents when available. Access to this microeconomy required participation in voluntary work programs. War Department Directive 383.6-5 established labor regulations for female POWs, permitting non-essential work within camp boundaries. Camp records show that women primarily worked in laundry facilities, washing and pressing American officers' uniforms, mending services, clerical roles, and kitchen assistants. These positions paid standardized rates: 40 cents per day for unskilled labor, 60 cents for specialized work, and 80 cents for supervisory roles. A typical female prisoner working 6 days weekly earned between $2.40 and $4.80, sufficient to purchase multiple luxury items completely unavailable to German civilians. The contrast with conditions in Germany created painful cognitive dissonance. By late 1944, German civilian women stood in queues for hours to redeem increasingly worthless ration coupons at empty shops. A Leipzig housewife's entire monthly cosmetics ration, if available at all, consisted of one small cake of poor quality soap. Female factory workers in Berlin received clothing coupons valid for one pair of artificial fabric stockings annually. Chocolate had disappeared from civilian access entirely, reserved exclusively for frontline troops and critical factory workers. PX inventory records from women's POW facilities document the astonishing array of consumer goods available to prisoners. Camp Blanding's October 1944 requisition included 2,400 chocolate bars, various brands, 200 packages of cigarettes, 720 tubes of toothpaste, 440 bars of toilet soap, 240 bottles of shampoo, 104 lipsticks, 288 small mirrors, 720 writing pads, 1,440 envelopes, 96 pairs of stockings. This bounty of everyday items delivered a more profound message about American industrial capacity than any military victory. The casual availability of non-essential goods during global warfare suggested production capabilities that Germany couldn't match even during peacetime. Swiss Red Cross Inspector Ernst Mörgeli reported after visiting Camp Blanding, "The canteen system provides female German prisoners with access to comfort items exceeding what is available to Swiss civilians under our own rationing system." The prisoners expressed particular astonishment at the variety of chocolates and cosmetics, items that many stated they had not seen since 1941 in Germany. The psychological impact of consumer choice after years of increasing scarcity created profound disorientation. Women who had been indoctrinated to celebrate deprivation as patriotic sacrifice now confronted abundance as the enemy's standard. The ability to choose between 5 brands of soap or 3 types of toothpaste represented a form of personal agency that had vanished from German civilian life years earlier. Camp records document frequent initial reluctance among female prisoners to spend their earnings on frivolous items like chocolate or cosmetics, a hesitation that typically dissolved within weeks as they adjusted to American consumer norms. By December 1944, Camp Blanding's canteen reported average weekly sales of 2.73 per female prisoner, with chocolate and cosmetics as the top-selling categories. The canteen experience forced a fundamental re-evaluation of Nazi economic claims. Women who had been told that American capitalism produced only deprivation and inequality now witnessed a system generating such extraordinary plenty that even enemy prisoners enjoyed consumer options unavailable to German civilians. This daily contradiction of core Nazi economic doctrine proved impossible to reconcile with years of propaganda. December 1944. Fort Devens, Massachusetts. The mess hall's transformation stunned Margaret Fisher, a captured clerical worker from Wehrmacht headquarters in Rome. Pine boughs and paper decorations hung from the ceiling. The tables had been rearranged into a U shape, covered with white cloths. At each place setting sat a small wrapped package. The aroma of roasting turkey permeated the air, a scent she hadn't experienced since Christmas 1938, before war engulfed Europe. "It wasn't simply the food that shocked us," she later recalled in a post-war interview. "It was the normality of celebration during wartime. In Germany, we had been taught that real sacrifice meant austere holidays. Here, our captors maintained their traditions despite global conflict and, more incredibly, included us in them." American holiday meal traditions represented a particular form of cultural dissonance for German female POWs. The 1944 Christmas dinner served at Fort Devens Women's Compound included roast turkey, 8 ounces per prisoner, sage stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls with butter, mincemeat pie, and coffee with real cream. Army Quartermaster records document that this meal, served to enemy personnel, provided approximately 3,800 calories and cost £1.27 per prisoner at a time when German civilians received special Christmas rations of 250 grams of real coffee and 100 grams of butter, meant to last the entire winter. The War Department's policy of maintaining American cultural traditions in POW facilities created psychological effects beyond nutrition. Camp records show that holiday decorations appeared systematically. Harvest themes for Thanksgiving, evergreens and religious symbols for Christmas, and patriotic displays for Independence Day. These seasonal markers maintained American cultural rhythms that gradually influenced the prisoners' sense of normalcy. Most surprising to German women were the voluntary interactions with American civilian communities. Fort Devens records document that the local Methodist women's group received permission to provide handmade gifts to female German prisoners at Christmas 1944. Small sewn bags containing hand lotion, hair ribbons, and peppermint candy. This generosity from women who likely had sons fighting in Europe created profound cognitive dissonance, challenging fundamental Nazi assertions about American hatred and vengefulness. The contrast with wartime Christmas celebrations in Germany couldn't have been starker. Since 1939, the Nazi Kriegsweihnacht, War Christmas, had emphasized increasingly austere sacrifice. By 1944, German civilians faced celebration with minimal heat, ersatz coffee, no butter except the special 100-gram ration, and gifts typically limited to handmade items from salvaged materials. The authorized propaganda ministry slogan for Christmas 1944, "Victory or Bolshevism," offered little festive comfort. Army records document the special occasion menus provided to female POWs throughout the year. Thanksgiving 1944 featured turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, green peas, rolls, pumpkin pie, and coffee. A purely American celebration that provided cultural education alongside nutrition. Easter 1944 included ham, scalloped potatoes, spring vegetables, hot cross buns, and custard. Independence Day brought hot dogs, potato salad, baked beans, watermelon, and lemonade. An introduction to casual American fare that contrasted with German formality. These celebrations occasionally included cultural exchange. Camp records show that female German prisoners received permission to prepare traditional dishes for special occasions. At Fort Devens in December 1944, German women used their canteen purchases and base ingredients to prepare Stollen and Lebkuchen, traditional Christmas breads and cookies, in the camp kitchen under supervision. These cultural exchanges humanized both captives and captors, undermining years of dehumanizing propaganda. The religious dimensions of American holidays particularly affected German women, many of whom came from Catholic or Lutheran backgrounds increasingly marginalized under Nazism. Fort Devens records show that local clergy received permission to conduct Christmas and Easter services in German for interested prisoners. The female POW's access to religious observance often exceeded what had been available in increasingly secularized wartime Germany. Red Cross inspector reports noted the psychological impact of holiday celebrations. Following Christmas 1944, Inspector Madeleine Respondek wrote, "Female German prisoners expressed particular surprise at the abundance of holiday provisions and decorations. Many commented that American Christmas in captivity exceeded their pre-war civilian celebrations in Germany. The receipt of gifts from American women's groups created notable emotional responses, with several prisoners stating that this generosity contradicted everything they had been told about American attitudes toward Germans. The most profound aspect of American holiday celebrations wasn't the food itself, but the revelation that the enemy maintained cultural normalcy during total war. This contradicted fundamental Nazi claims that American softness would prevent effective wartime sacrifice. Instead, German women witnessed a society that maintained its traditions while producing unprecedented military power, a combination their leadership had declared impossible. Spring 1945, Fort Meade, Maryland. Captain Hanna Müller, Army Medical Corps, recorded measurements with clinical precision as Gerda Hoffmann, formerly a stenographer with the Wehrmacht High Command, stepped off the scale. The result, 139 pounds, represented a 14-pound increase since her initial examination 7 months earlier. Captain Miller noted the prisoner's improved skin tone, the absence of the vertical fingernail ridges that had indicated malnutrition upon arrival, and the healthy pink gums replacing the previously inflamed tissue symptomatic of vitamin deficiency. "We're making Americans out of you with all this food," Captain Miller joked as she recorded the data. Gerda didn't smile. The implications of her physical transformation were too profound. Her body itself had become evidence contradicting everything she'd been taught about American scarcity and German efficiency. Army Medical Corps records document the systematic health improvements among female German prisoners during American captivity. Entrance examinations at Fort Meade Women's Compound in 1943-44 revealed consistent deficiency patterns among new arrivals. 47% showed clinical signs of protein malnutrition, 63% presented vitamin C deficiency indicators, 38% had insufficient calcium intake markers, and 71% fell below standard weight charts for their height and frame. Follow-up examinations after 6 months of standard POW rations documented remarkable improvements across all categories. The most visible transformation appeared in body weight measurements. Medical records from women's POW facilities show average weight increases of 12.4 pounds after 6 months in American custody, with some individuals gaining over 20 pounds. These gains weren't from excessive consumption, but represented recovery to normal health parameters following years of incremental malnourishment under increasingly restricted German rations. Dental records tell an equally revealing story. Initial examinations of female German personnel showed widespread periodontal disease, enamel erosion, and multiple caries, conditions directly linked to nutritional deficiencies and poor quality wartime rations. After 6 months on American POW diets, dental surgeons documented significant improvements in gum health and arrested decay progression, though structural damage remained permanent. The contrast with deteriorating conditions among German civilian women created stark comparisons. By spring 1945, female civilians in German cities subsisted on approximately 1,000 calories daily through increasingly irregular ration distributions. Medical records from Berlin hospitals documented rising cases of amenorrhea, cessation of menstruation, due to malnutrition, increasing susceptibility to tuberculosis, and widespread deficiency disorders. Meanwhile, their countrywomen in American captivity received 3,500 daily calories with complete nutritional profiles. Army nutritionists implemented preventative supplementation programs at women's POW facilities that exceeded contemporary civilian standards. Daily rations included 1 multivitamin tablet, cod liver oil during winter months, 1 tablespoon weekly, and iron supplements for women showing anemia indicators. Fresh fruit appeared daily, typically apples, oranges, or bananas, providing natural vitamin C that had disappeared from German civilian diets years earlier. Milk, 1 pint daily, delivered calcium, protein, and vitamin D at levels unavailable in Germany since early war rationing. The availability of fresh produce particularly astonished the German women. Seasonal vegetables appeared at every lunch and dinner, often in multiple varieties. Camp procurement records from Fort Meade show regular deliveries of lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, peas, green beans, corn, and seasonal specialties. Many female prisoners reported in censored letters that they hadn't seen fresh tomatoes or oranges since 1941 in Germany, where such items had been replaced by turnips and rutabagas as staple vegetables. Red Cross inspection reports documented the medical aspects of captivity. Following a March 1945 visit to Fort Meade, Medical Inspector Dr. Friedrich Gritter wrote, "Female German prisoners show remarkable health improvements compared to initial capture conditions. Skin conditions have resolved, weight normalization is evident, and energy levels exceed those typically observed among German civilian women in recent examinations. The nutritional standards maintained in American custody exceed not only minimum Geneva Convention requirements, but surpass current Swiss civilian standards under rationing. The medical transformations created unignorable evidence contradicting core Nazi claims about American capabilities. The bodies of these women themselves became living testimony to a prosperity that Nazi propaganda had declared impossible. Blood tests showing normalized hemoglobin levels, dental examinations revealing arrested decay progression, and weight charts documenting steady increases provided empirical evidence no ideological argument could counter. Most revealing were the comparative statistics compiled by Army Medical Corps researchers studying POW nutrition. By spring 1945, female German prisoners in American custody averaged daily consumption of protein, 97 grams, calcium, 200 milligrams, iron, 14 milligrams, vitamin A, 8,500 IU, vitamin C, 75 mg, and caloric intake, 350. Their counterparts in German cities, when rations were fully available, received approximately protein, 31 grams, calcium, 400 milligrams, iron, 7 mg, vitamin A, 2200 IU, vitamin C, 15 mg, and caloric intake, 1000. This threefold disparity in nearly every nutrition category represented the material reality behind Germany's collapse. The physical transformation of female German prisoners delivered a message no propaganda film could counter. Their bodies themselves had become evidence of American abundance and German failure. The weight gain, improved complexion, and enhanced energy levels demonstrated through objective medical measurements provided irrefutable proof that the American system delivered material benefits that years of Nazi efficiency had failed to produce. Late 1946. Bremen, Germany. Helga Schmidt stepped from the repatriation train into a landscape of devastation that bore no resemblance to the country she had left 3 years earlier. The hollow-eyed civilians on the platform stared at her healthy frame and robust complexion with undisguised suspicion. At 142 pounds, 17 pounds heavier than when captured in Tunisia, her physical appearance itself provoked disbelief. When she described American prison camps to her emaciated sister, the stories of 3 daily meals, desserts, and unlimited milk were dismissed as fantasy or collaboration. "They called me a liar or worse," she recorded in her diary. "How could I explain that as a prisoner of our enemies I had eaten better than free Germans? That my captors treated me with a dignity our own government had abandoned? The America I experienced contradicted everything they had been told, everything I had once believed myself." The repatriation process for female German military personnel stretched from late 1945 through 1947, with priority given to women with dependent children or specialized skills needed for reconstruction. Approximately 300 women who had served in auxiliary roles returned to a homeland where food rationing had grown more severe after defeat than during war. Allied Control Authority records show German civilian rations in the British zone during winter 1946-47 provided just 1,050 calories daily, below concentration camp levels and less than 1/3 the standard POW rations these women had received in America. The reverse culture shock experienced by returning female POWs created profound psychological dissonance. These women had undergone systematic transformation through direct experience of American abundance. They returned to communities still clinging to fragments of Nazi-era beliefs about American inferiority despite overwhelming evidence of defeat. Their testimonies about conditions in American camps frequently met with disbelief or accusations of propaganda contamination. Social reintegration proved particularly challenging. Women who had served in military auxiliary roles already occupied an ambiguous position in German society. Their wartime service contradicted traditional gender expectations, while their captivity in America had exposed them to female military personnel, civilian workers, and volunteers who demonstrated women's capabilities beyond German cultural limitations. Many returnees found themselves unwilling to readjust to pre-war restrictions after experiencing comparative American gender flexibility. Despite initial skepticism, female former POWs gradually became unofficial ambassadors for American democratic values. Their first-hand experience of American institutional systems, from food distribution to medical care to educational opportunities, provided concrete examples contradicting both Nazi propaganda and post-war Soviet messaging about American shortcomings. When Marshall Plan aid began flowing into Western Germany in 1948, These women often served as informal interpreters of American intentions, having experienced American generosity directly. The professional contributions of former female POWs to Germany's post-war reconstruction exceeded expectations. Many applied skills acquired during American captivity, improved English language proficiency, typing and clerical training, basic medical knowledge, and exposure to American administrative systems. Records from occupation authorities show that by 1950, approximately 730 former female POWs had secured positions with American, British, or French reconstruction agencies, while others contributed to emerging German democratic institutions. Historical interviews collected in the 1970s and 1980s document the lasting impact of the American food experience on these women. Emma Weber, former radio operator, stated in a 1979 oral history, "American food transformed more than our bodies. It transformed our understanding of what governments owe citizens. A system that could feed enemies better than Nazi Germany fed its most loyal supporters, revealed fundamental truths about both societies." My first taste of orange juice in Florida explained American victory more clearly than any military analysis. Academic studies of attitudinal changes among female German POWs reveal remarkable transformation rates. Dr. Konrad Adenauer Institute research conducted in 1962 showed that 83% of surveyed former female prisoners reported fundamentally changed views toward American democracy following captivity, compared to 61% of male former POWs and 47% of Germans without POW experience. When asked to identify the most significant factor in their attitudinal change, 71% of women cited direct experience of American material conditions, primarily food, medical care, and consumer goods access. The female German POW experience in America accomplished what formal denazification programs often failed to achieve: complete ideological transformation through direct material experience rather than coerced political re-education. These women had lived inside two radically different systems. They had experienced the culmination of Nazi efficiency in progressively deteriorating rations, and they had witnessed American chaos producing standardized abundance even for enemies. No abstract argument could counter this lived reality. Their transformation extended beyond individual experience to generational impact. The children and grandchildren of these women grew up hearing first-hand accounts of American abundance that contradicted both Nazi-era propaganda and Cold War Soviet messaging. These family stories of ice cream, oranges, and multivitamins in American POW camps created enduring skepticism toward anti-American narratives across generations. What began as disbelief at American lunch trays evolved into the most profound ideological conversion of the war. Enemy women transformed through meals into witnesses of democratic abundance. Their testimony, carried back to a devastated homeland, planted seeds of transformation that would blossom into the German economic miracle of the 1950s. A system built on American models of democratic capitalism, observed firsthand in prison camp canteens and mess halls across America.